Welcome to the Brand and Market Podcast, where branding clarity meets marketing strategy. I'm your host, Allie Haney, founder of Brand and Market, a boutique agency dedicated to helping small businesses craft intentional brands and effective marketing plans. Each week, I share practical tips and insights to help you, especially those of you in real estate-related industries, build a standout brand to attract your brand's biggest fans. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. I'm Allie Haney, your host, and today I have Holly Mitton. She is the owner of Little Bird Boston, and she does PR. So she is here all to tell us about what that world looks like and how to incorporate it into our marketing strategy as realtors and short-term rental owners. So welcome, Holly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Of course, of course. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more about who Holly is and what Little Bird Boston does.
Sure. So as you said, I'm Holly Mitton, and I own Little Bird Boston, which is a marketing and PR, what I call a boutique agency. So we specifically work with small businesses in the lifestyle range. So a lot of realtors and in terms of like short-term rentals, travel, hospitality, that industry. And typically what we do, everything is very custom for our clients, but helping them get visibility through earned media to attract and get in front of their target customers in whatever way that could be. So a lot of like traditional media, TV interviews, quotes in online publications, newspaper interviews, as well as influencers has become a big part of earned media in the last few years. So primarily that's how we help small businesses grow their brand.
So when you say earned media, break it down for us what that actually means.
I heard this somewhere years ago that there's kind of like 3 different media buckets. So you have your owned media, which, is your website, your social media, like you own that, that's yours. You can say whatever you want there. And then paid media, which is obviously Google ads, digital advertising, social ads, things like that. And then earned media is the kind of like third bucket, which is separate because you're earning that. It's a journalist or it's an influencer who's actually interested in what you have to say. So they're promoting you in whatever way that is through a different channel. So it comes across a little bit more authentic and gives you a little bit more credibility because your customers they know advertising. They know when they see you on social, you're promoting it, you have a specific message, but when they hear it from a different source that is not biased, then it comes across a little bit more credible. So that's kind of what I call earned media.
So it's like social proof, basically. You're earning the ability to be able to speak to someone else's audience who they have already garnered the trust from. All right, so let's dive a little bit more into the different types of PR that we could incorporate into our marketing strategies. I heard you name a lot. Do you see like everywhere from like television all the way to influencer marketing on social? So do you have a recommendation of where a short-term rental owner would start within the world of earned media or PR?
Sure. So short-term rental owners, they probably have a sense of where their customers are coming from. So likely, maybe it's regionally. It could be nationally, like they could have a pocket of people depending on where they're coming from. They know that Texans always travel to New England, which isn't true, but something like that. So I think it's usually clients come to me and they're like, hey, this is what we think. And then we'll test it. So, maybe we will start local. So I'm in Boston, locally in New England. There's a lot of travel journalists in New England talking about travel. I'm in Boston, but people go up to Maine a lot. They go to New Hampshire a lot. So say you're a short-term rental owner in the woods of New Hampshire, they might reach out to a travel writer in the Boston Globe and say, hey, are you doing a story on the best Airbnbs or to, go hiking in the mountains or, best for family or whatever they may want to kind of promote themselves. So I think probably starting there regionally, because obviously that would be their biggest customer base and the goal would be to drive more customers. So start with there. But even the other thing is national travel writers are always looking to highlight either like hidden gems or different places to visit, things like that. So that sort of like, say you're in travel and leisure is going to give you huge domain authority if travel and leisure is linking to your Airbnb website. So typically my clients kind of do a mix of local as well as national because local might drive more customers, but national is going to give them bigger credibility. It's going to help boost their SEO value and their own domain authority to have those links back. Yeah, so generally, I mean, it's kind of like a mix of like knowing who to reach out to, when to reach out to, what writers are traveling places. Like I'm on all of these travel writer their newsletter. So like I'll get an email on Monday, and the travel writer will be like, "Hey, I'm going to go explore Montana. Does anyone have any clients that I could stay in Montana? Any places to check out? Things like that." So for short-term rental owners, it could be as easy as just like letting them know and sending them photos and the links. Whereas some journalists do actually want to visit. So it could be kind of like a mix of inviting journalists to visit your location, which would be a little bit more obviously intense, and you're going to obviously spend money hosting them. They might want to stay for free. So that's, obviously something to consider as well.
That is so funny that you said like it's just regionally specific, like knowing your customer and where they're traveling from, because I'm just going to give like a little anecdote really quick. But we used to live by the beach in North Carolina. And so we were right on like Surf City, Topsail Beach, Topsail Island. I was in graduate school at the time and working like just a part-time job at a local coffee shop. And it always amazed me at the amount of people we got from Ohio specifically to Topsail Island. I was like, what in the world? It's like, what advertising did they see in Ohio that's bringing all of these Ohioans to this island? And similarly, my sister-in-law's family, her family's from New Jersey, and they always vacation down in Florida, and everyone in her area vacation down in Florida. So it's like knowing who your guest is and where they're coming from is really, really beneficial. And I never really kind of like put that together until you said to like target the places where the travelers are originating from. That's so smart.
Right. And also, I mean, the other thing too that, I mean, it's a little outside of PR, but so many things can fall under PR is like partnerships. So, say you have a partnership with a local restaurant and, you're kind of, say if a journalist comes to visit you, they're going to visit the restaurant. So you kind of like or a different activity, like a kayaking tour or something like that. So then you can host the journalist and say, okay, here's some activities around here. And then they'll write a story kind of with a itinerary and, kind of promote all of these different businesses. So even like the local tourism boards, sometimes will reach out to businesses to say, hey, we have journalists coming, or we want to host a media tour or something like that. So it is obviously dependent on, how active the tourism sphere is around the rental itself, but just even like networking with other like-minded businesses and kind of going at it all together, because then, the whole region benefits instead of, just you. And obviously the rental will benefit as well.
So you got me kind of like on this geographical mindset right now where we could be targeting where our guests are originating from, but can you like dive a little bit deeper into how to create those like partnerships locally to be able to do that? Is there like a pitch that we could give them or to make it beneficial for both of us?
Sure. I mean, so sometimes I will reach out to partners on behalf of my clients, and whether it is we have a journalist already scheduled to come, or I might say, hey, I'm planning to reach out and invite these journalists to attend. I'd love to bring your restaurant into it, and thinking we could offer them a free meal. And most likely they will post about you in Travel or Leisure or whatever it is, so that they know the benefit that they're getting out of it as well. But I think typically, if it's something in person and you just get the right manager, or usually it's a marketing manager or sometimes a social media manager as well, then they can kind of like put it into action and kind of like make the partnership a little bit more compelling. But I don't think it has to be anything, super formal. I think sometimes restaurants might feel like you're being salesy or something, like, oh, how much do they want me to spend or whatever, but making it clear that you're just looking to team up for mutual benefit, and it's nothing that is going to, make them pay out of pocket, more so just kind of like giving a free dinner to a journalist or something like that, which is usually cost effective for them to do anyway.
Yeah, when you first reached out to me, I was thinking of all like what I traditionally thought of as PR, which was like print media. And then we had discussed offline about how influencer marketing is now kind of becoming under the umbrella of PR. So, can you kind of like talk me through what it looks like to work with influencers within the either Airbnb, short term rental, hospitality space in general, and how we could choose which ones are right for us to work with? And yeah, just walk me through what that process looks like.
Sure. So influencer marketing is so tough right now because it can be like the pricing can be all over the place. Like it could be they just want to experience the location and post about it because they feel passionate about it versus influencers. That's how they make a living. So, they need to charge something. So it could be like $10,000 for a story that disappears in, a day, which is like insane. So I think for clients, first of all, there's so many travel journalists or sorry, travel influencers, and I really do think they are all about the experience and looking for new experiences and unique experiences because they want to give that content to their followers and it's going to help them as well. So looking at, maybe they kind of, bucket it and say, hey, I'm going to look for influencers under 10,000 followers. It's going to be regional. They're going to be focused on travel in New England. And they might not charge a lot versus there's travel influencers with 300,000 followers and they're probably going to charge you a little bit. But is it really beneficial to have somebody from, Oklahoma whose, followers, I mean, they may be all over the country, but understanding where their followers actually are they going to be beneficial to driving customers for you specifically? But I always think it's good to kind of like reach out to different people, different types, get a mix, get a sense of, what they're looking for and try out a few. You'll probably kind of know a little bit better where, like, if you have somebody locally with a smaller niche audience, 5,000 followers or something, and you get 2 bookings from it, it's more beneficial than spending $10,000 for a 300,000, follower influencer and then, only getting 5 customers from it. So trying a mix of it and obviously, within their budget, but you don't really know until you reach out to them and then they give you the media kit and kind of connect with them. But the more like authentically organic and genuine the fit is, the better. So like looking at their content and be like, oh, they love hiking and I have an Airbnb in the mountains, so I'd love to invite them, to my Airbnb.
Yeah, that's funny because I think that people often think of influencers as like a quick influx of bookings and therefore cash. But like you said, there's nothing that can replace like the nurturing of that relationship prior to making any ask, whether it's like paid or not. So yeah, knowing their audience well enough to know whether their audience is going to be able to relate to your property is invaluable for sure.
Right. And there's like so many also like kid friendly family travelers and, that sort of thing. So even if, in your mind you have a different itinerary for, a couple versus, a family and saying like letting them know the value of, what you could provide if they're going to come visit you. And the other thing too is, would you need to pay for their travel? So like I did it was a little bit different. It was like a wine and food festival in Montana, but we had influencers coming from all over the country. And so some of the influencers would need us to pay their airfare there. And again, sometimes you can also work with a local tourism board and they might have a budget for influencers where, they say, okay, we're going to fly out these people. They're going to stay at your Airbnb. And then we're also going to give them all of these different opportunities locally. So that might be another thing to consider. But yeah, I always say try to work with the local tourism board and, in whatever way they can through media or influencers. Sometimes they have a bigger budget and you can kind of just piggyback on that a little bit.
I never thought of leaning on the budget of somebody else. Like my brain is always so like bootstraps, like how can I make this cash happen? That is so ingenious. What a cool drop of knowledge. So with PR in general, I feel like the one of the main things that people push back on is like how can I track my ROI? How can I make sure that this is actually, beefing up my top line and therefore my bottom line? So do you have any recommendations on how to track, this publication led to these bookings or this influencer partnership led to this? How do you go about that?
Sure. So, I mean, everyone's a little bit different in what they do, but I always recommend making sure Google Analytics is turned on correctly so you can track the links back to your website. And depending on how involved you can get with Google Analytics, I believe they can track, the actual sales. But again, I don't know exactly like if they're booking through Airbnb versus like through the website. I'm not sure on all of that. So, but I think like when you see, okay, I was in the Boston Globe and I had 5 clicks to my website and all those people like left right away versus I was in Business Insider and I had 50 people come and they spent, 5 minutes on my website and they clicked around to different pages. I think even that knowledge is going to let you know, okay, these are people who are interested. Maybe they're not booking right away because, they are planning a vacation, but they're not ready to book. So as everyone in marketing knows, you need a few different touch points. So even once you get them to the website, remarketing to them through, Google and through social media ads and things like that. But usually I always say Google Analytics is a big driver. Also just like socially kind of like seeing new followers and seeing, if there was an influencer, usually they can have some sort of like tracking code or, discount code or whatever it is, or like a contest that the influencer is going to say follow this page in order to, win $50 off or whatever that might be. But having some sort of an idea that will kind of like help say, this is working, this isn't working, let's do more of this.
Yeah, that's like a direct like plug for a direct booking site, because as short-term rental owners, we really don't have the data that Airbnb has, like to see how many people, like we can see how many people click the listing, but we can't see where the traffic came from. I mean, oftentimes it comes directly from just the Airbnb platform and, we're subject to the algorithm on that site. So direct plug for any of you short-term rental owners out there that don't already have a direct booking site. If you are looking to like invest in PR influencer partnerships and you want to be able to track where they came from, you heard it from Holly herself that setting up the Google Analytics on your specific site is going to be the best way to do that. So just wanted to put that out into the universe. Hey host, you've got a lot of responsibilities on your plate. Guest communication, cleaning coordination, marketing, and everything in between. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while and love all the great actionable tips, but just have zero time to execute on them, then it might be time to get some help. You're in luck. I've been a superhost for over 6 years with over 200 5-star reviews, and I'm here to help you elevate your short-term rental business. I've co-hosted properties across 3 states, managing everything remotely and ensuring my clients' guests have a seamless 5-star experience every single time. Here at Branded Market, we focus on creating a unique guest experience through cohesive branding for your property. It gives boutique hotel rather than side hustle short-term rental. So whether you need help with guest communication, maintaining your listing, or just keeping things running smoothly day to day, my co-hosting services take the stress off your shoulders so you can focus on growing your business and portfolio or getting that side hustle back over to the side. Let me make your listing into your legacy, one great guest experience at a time. Ready to take your short-term rental to the next level? Head to www.brandonmarket.co/co-hosting to learn more about how my co-hosting services can help you. Offline, Holly, you and I spoke about telling your brand's story. And I feel like a lot of people don't really think that their property has a story behind it. Like maybe they just bought it as an investment property and that's it. But how would you encourage those property owners to like mine the gems that's within their brand story to then have something to pitch to different publications and stuff?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I think talking about what makes their property unique as much as they can, and maybe they're talking to a friend and they're explaining it, and the friend is like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool," or "I didn't know that," and kind of like you said, like picking out those gems to kind of like highlight. But it can be tough when you're in it and you're like, this is the elevator pitch that I always do, and you don't really realize what resonates with a journalist or an influencer. So talking to a marketing person, a PR person, a journalist, even just, if they have a journalist who's a friend or they're reaching out to a journalist, they might get a sense of what would resonate most. But really, I think it's what makes your story unique and how you can kind of like amplify that through your brand story. And usually it can be pretty obvious once you kind of like talk through it enough, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always thought that we never had like a real brand story until like I was working with my VA for my business, and I was telling her this story of how like our first short-term rental was not intended to be a short-term rental when we purchased it. And then the second short-term rental was not intended to be a short-term rental when we purchased it. And I'm like, wow, I'm the accidental short-term rental owner multiple times over. That is definitely a brand story that like was sitting so close to me. So like it was like so close I couldn't see it. So there's definitely a story there. You just got to find it. Again, when you popped into my inbox and you told me that you did PR and, talking about short term rentals, it sparked a conversation that I had back in March. So I went to the Level Up Your Listing Summit in Arizona, hosted by Natalie Palmer and Tatiana Taylor Tate. They're short term rental owners. One's a short term rental designer. They had one of their speakers. It was the owners of Bolt Farm Treehouse. Seth and Tori Bolt are the owners' names. And I remember during her presentation that she said she had a background in PR, and she was telling us their brand story and how they ended up selling like over $1 million in reservations before they had even closed on the property. Like they basically sold the idea of their brand story. And I was like, I wonder how in the world they were able to be so successful, and come to find out, like, you might know more about this story than I do, but I know that she had a background in PR and that she leveraged some of those relationships that she had previously. And so it's just a testament to how powerful PR can be within our hospitality industry.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, the Bolt Farm Treehouse is like they do a great job in the media. So like they're in like every listing for like the best, mountain treehouse that you can stay in, or all of those different kind of like listicles. So obviously that's what I had said before, like reaching out to the travel journalists if they are doing those type of listicles. But also I know that they've also done a great job themselves kind of like promoting the area. So I think Seth was quoted, talking about everything that there is to do in the area. So it's not even pushing his own property, but just like, what you can do and how the property fits into it. So that's another big thing with my clients is sometimes they get so, focused on themselves and promoting themselves, where it's more about giving the journalists information that they need help with on the story. So like I said, like they love to talk about hidden gems. But if you pitch them and you say, hey, I have this great Airbnb in, West Virginia, but you don't talk about the location or like anything around it, they're not going to be interested. So kind of like being helpful to the journalists. And like I said, some may want to come stay and check it out and see everything versus some will be like, oh my God, that's a adorable picture of a treehouse. I'm going to write a whole story around that. But yeah, it really obviously depends. But yeah, utilizing those journalist connections, which she had a background in PR, but if you don't, then you would have to kind of work with a consultant or someone who can know the right pitch and know who to reach out to and when to reach out to. But yeah, they've been listed like everywhere, and it worked for them.
It really did. It really did. $1 million in like pre-reservations. They hadn't even closed on the property yet, which is absolutely wild. And I mean, seeing their list of like all the places they've been featured is like Netflix, like Carrie Underwood, I think has stayed on their property. Like they went after big names. So I don't want others to feel intimidated by it. Like, remember, Holly already mentioned like the local tourism board. You don't have to compare yourself to like Bolt Farm Treehouse. So you sparked something about when you said local attractions, that sparked something in my mind. Just using my property in Kentucky as an example, we are like in the heart of the Bourbon Trail. And so when you say to like pitch other travel journalists with ideas that are not just focused around your Airbnb, like, is that what you mean by like leveraging the other local attractions? Like, give me like a quick example of how I could utilize your strategy with my property that's specifically on the Bourbon Trail.
One, I would set up Google alerts for any journalist writing about the Bourbon Trail, so you know who those travel journalists are. And then, like I said, I get tons of inquiries from travel journalists who say, "Hey, I'm going to the Bourbon Trail," and they plan early. Like they will plan like in December, they're like, okay, I'm planning all of my travel for 2026. Yeah. So reaching out to them and saying, we'd love to have you come stay here. We could set up a tour for you on the Bourbon Trail. So then, you might, or your PR person, reach out to a tour group, and most likely they would be completely fine inviting a media journalist to their tour or whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, I think capitalizing on, what's interesting and, what there is to do on the area, and just kind of being part of that conversation. The conversation will be had. So just making sure you are a part of it, because, otherwise once you see an article, it's going to be too late. And a lot of times they won't add you in. Sometimes they'll update articles, especially travel articles. They'll update them, once, maybe every other year, because obviously things close and they want to make sure they have the latest attractions and things like that. Yeah, just staying on top of it. And I mean, with travel PR, a PR consultant is going to be kind of like your best bet to get that done, because it's a lot to stay on top of.
Yeah, I imagine it's a lot of follow-ups. And that's one of the things that I remember Tori citing in her presentation at Level Up, was that like follow up, follow up, follow up. Like their inboxes are crazy. Like just keep at it.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, I have clients might try to DIY PR themselves, and then they'll come to me because it's just not working. Or they'll be like, I sent out 20 pitches and no one got back to me. And I'm like, yeah, you just like need to be strategic about like what you put in the subject line, like the keywords that you use, following up appropriately. So a PR person's going to do that. But the kind of one of the funny things is, with PR now is just, it's taking longer, because maybe they do want to go to the Bourbon Trail, but now they have to pitch it to their editor because there's more freelancers and not staff writers. And then they have to get their approval. And then, they're going to schedule it for next year. So it takes longer in general for, from a pitch to fruition. Sometimes you get lucky and someone's like, oh, I'm going there next week. It was a few weeks ago. I had a journalist respond from an email from 3 years ago that they were like, oh, I've been saving this in my inbox and I want to do a story on it now. And I was like, great. But like, that's like, they will save emails and they'll come back and respond 3 years later.
3 years. Oh my, I can't even tell you how much my life has changed in 3 years. I had a baby. I've moved twice. Like, it's been great. Started another business.
Right.
Like,
I wasn't even working with the client anymore, but obviously I sent it to them so that they could, make sure it was a TV segment. And they were just like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, it's the media landscape is so different now than it used to be 5 or 10 years ago, like with the media outlets closing down. And like I said, more freelancers and less staff writers. I mean, the good news is travel PR and travel media is huge right now. And the other thing too, I was going to say that we didn't really talk about is like thought leadership and bylined pieces. So, I mean, depending on how comfortable a person is, like I said, Seth was quoted being kind of that voice of the tourism area. So you could potentially, there's a lot of like byline pieces, like Business Insider is always looking for anyone. You don't have to be a journalist, but to write about their travel experience. It can't be super promotional. You can't be like, oh, I stayed at my own Airbnb and it was amazing. But you could, kind of like highlight, what there is to do around the area, and, utilize thought leadership and byline pieces as a kind of like a different way to get that earned media value.
okay, so I know what thought leadership is, but can you break down what byline pieces are for me?
Yeah, so that would be like me writing an article. So by Holly Mitton is kind of like the byline.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
got it. Sorry, in my head I was thinking BUY.
Yeah, but
you're like, no, honey, that would
more,
be paid media.
well, media outlets, they don't want to pay for content. So this is a way that they can get free content from non-professional writers, where you can kind of like promote what you want to promote, but also giving value to their audience. So it has to be the right fit in terms of content. But like Today Essays has a whole travel section. I know, I just keep saying Business Insider because they are like always looking for travel content. But yeah, there's a lot.
That's so cool. Never even was on my radar. Okay, so like you said, if this is the route that you want to go and you've never done it before, it is best to hire a professional. So kind of like walk us through your services and what it would look like to work with you as an Airbnb host.
Sure. So I work exclusively with small businesses, and, so a lot of times it's just, hopping on the call. I'm always willing to, do kind of like a free consultation call and talk through what it might look like. Generally, my clients are on kind of like a ongoing retainer basis because it can be tough to do like short-term projects. Like if they're like, oh, I only have 2 months, because like I said, the whole momentum and follow up for PR, it can take a little while to build up. Generally, I always want to get something for my clients right away. So we are kind of continuing to build momentum. At least I don't lock clients into like a long-term contract. I know some other PR agencies will lock you into like 6 months or a year, but because I work with small businesses, I try to be very flexible. So seasonally, if they are like, hey, I know that I'm going to be off the grid in December, January, or whatever it is, I try to be very flexible with clients. So yeah, having kind of like an initial consultation call, they can ask questions. PR can be scary if you've never done it because it's not like Google advertising where there's like a, hey, this is the exact deliverable. With PR, I give my clients generally, I've been doing this long enough where I kind of have a sense of what I think the results will be. So kind of, just making them feel comfortable with it. I'm very much like all about transparency. So like sending them my media list, so they know which outlets I'm reaching out to, and sending them the pitch angle that I'm developing to make sure it fits with them, or if they're like, actually, we want to highlight this, and just kind of having that monthly check-in to be like, hey, this is the feedback I'm getting, these are the results we're getting, and just making sure we're on the same page. Whereas sometimes clients will come to me and they'll be like, I was working with this agency for 6 months and they never told me I didn't know what they were doing. Like they just didn't tell me. So I really try to be full transparency with clients so that they feel comfortable. And generally, like I said, the monthly retainer will just kind of be ongoing unless, seasonally they need to take breaks, or, budget wise, I know small businesses might need to take a break because of budget purposes and things like that. So that's why I try to be pretty flexible.
So you create the pitch, then you do the outreach and the follow-up.
And I do everything in terms of, if they need to do interview prep, or sending putting together a media kit, if we need a press release, if we need content, kind of like working with them. Yeah, everything from pre-interview to follow up.
Wow, that sounds pretty robust. Now, if I am putting aside a budget for that, where should I like aim for?
It really, like I said, I try to be flexible with clients. Usually, my lifestyle clients tend to be between $2,000 and $3,000 range. Usually the big PR agencies, they could be anywhere from like $10,000 to $20,000. So that's not my client. My client is a smaller business who wants to get themselves in the media, and they want to get earned media, but they're not going to need kind of that level of support of an agency, which I always feel like agencies kind of, you're going to get an intern from college anyway, working from you. Whereas, if you do work with a consultant like myself, I've been doing this for 15 years and, have the higher level of experience, as well as we all use the same databases. So there's not really like a bigger difference with a big, like people have paid agency money and then they're telling me they're getting a better value with what I'm doing. But yeah, I would say the $2,000 to $4,000 range is where most of my clients live in. I try to kind of work within their budget and help them out. So
yeah, and to clarify, you mean per month?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And how do you determine which like avenues would be the best, whether it's like pitching to be on podcasts versus pitching to be Business Insider versus pitching influencers? How do we come to that conclusion of where we should start? And I know the answer is probably it depends, but are there some like kind of case studies that you could provide that make it clear to where, if we were making this decision ourselves, this is where we should start?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So yeah, it depends on what their goals are. Some people, want it for brand building, whereas some are like, hey, I need customers now, and I want to have at least like a sense of I'm driving new customers, and then this is going to, fuel my long-term brand. Obviously, all of it, you need all of it, but it just depends on their budget. It depends on, what they're kind of like looking to do. I usually tell my clients we can do it all in a shorter time frame, but if you have a smaller budget, then we'll just kind of, lengthen it out a little bit more, and we'll start with the lowest hanging fruit and what we think is going to be the best fit for you. And then we'll do all of those other brand building things that are going to strengthen your brand long term, over the course of the next few months if we can't get it all in the beginning.
That totally makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Holly, for being on today. I want our listeners to be able to find you once we get off of this call. And I did hear you say that you offer free consultations. So if it's okay with you, I would love to put that link in our show notes for this episode. And that way you can get in touch with Holly very easily just by clicking that link and scheduling your free consultation with her, either as a short-term rental owner, which is what we focused on today, or as a realtor because she does work with those lifestyle brands. So Holly, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can tell everybody where to find you online and off of the podcast episode.
Great. My website, littlebirdboston.com. If you want to reach out, I have a contact page and we can schedule a consultation call. And then also on Instagram, it's just Holly Littlebird Boston PR. So either one of those, LinkedIn, Holly Mitton, whatever works to get in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your knowledge, Holly, today. It's been awesome. I loved hearing about the Google Analytics and using local tourism boards budgets for our own marketing. Loved hearing all about it. So thank you again. You just completed another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned today. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.